What we're looking at now is software development models. So that's the way in which software is made. And the first things we're going to look at is we're going to compare custom written software and this is also known as bespoke. And we're going to compare custom written software against off-the-shelf. So custom written software is software which is written specifically for a person or a company. And so there's a number of advantages of building software this way. One of them is that you can work specifically with your customer, and so you can take into account their preferences. Another advantage of having custom written software for your business or for yourself is if you're competing with other companies, then if you have software which is better than their company has, then you have an advantage over your competitors. And so these are the two main things which are better about custom written software. So what you're doing, you're getting a programmer or a team or a company of programmers to build you exactly the software you want with your preferences, and that will give you the edge over another company. There's a number of negatives with doing custom written or bespoke software though. And one of them is that you have to wait for the development. And another disadvantage is that it can be tremendously costly and expensive to produce this sort of software. So if you imagine you're a company, if you could go and just buy the software, you might be looking at hundreds of pounds, but you could be looking at thousands, tens of thousands, or even millions to develop the software for yourself. Equally, it could take months or years, and a lot of government software, which is obviously made typically for one customer. So if you think about maybe checking passports, the software to do that, there's only really one customer, which is the government that would want that software. There might be a number of governments that want it, so they might be able to buy off the shelf. But it's very often that they'll need custom written software. And it's very often that government projects, not just in this country, but in many countries, have the problem that they go well over the time for development, they're late, and they cost far more than was ever predicted. So both money and the time to wait is the big disadvantages of custom written software. It tends to be small utilities and small bits of software that normal companies will get custom built for themselves just to help those little points and intricacies which are for their company. Now on the off-the-shelf products, it's almost the opposite what you're getting, but in general people go off the shelf because of the cost. So if you think about something like an office suite, that could cost you, for the license to use it, a few £100s, maybe tens of pounds for each user. In fact, there's off-the-shelf products which are totally free which you can get, whereas developing those would cost tens of thousands, if not hundreds, thousands, even millions to develop that piece of software. So the cost is a big reason why you get off the shelf. And off the shelf means you can almost walk into a shop and buy it off the shelf, or you can download it off the web straight away. And so because of that convenience, one of the advantages of off the shelf is that it's ready to use immediately. The other advantage of using off the shelf products is that it can cut down training costs. So if everybody uses similar types of software, then the training will be decreased because they'll all be using the same type of software. So even if they switch company, they can say, I already know how to use this word processor or this spreadsheet software. And another advantage is that your help is more available. And by that, what I mean is if you use a popular product that's off the shelf that millions of users in the world use, then you can go online and find help, you can buy books and find help, so it's generally more available. Off-the-shelf products, though, do have the disadvantage that they are not perfectly written for that particular company. And it's a small trade-off compared to the positives of using off-the-shelf software, which is why most companies use off-the-shelf software, and even where they do need customization, they'll get off-the-shelf software and then just maybe customize one module and get the company that built the software to customize that one part. So those are two models for how software is developed, which sort of goes side by side. Now look at a further two models, and this is a little bit about the development, but mostly about how software is paid for. And the two models which we're going to look at are proprietary software and open source software. And these are two very different models, almost complete opposites to each other. And so the proprietary software model is the one which is slightly more traditional. And what this is you typically pay for a license to use the software. And I'll put in brackets that it can be free. So a type of proprietary software that you can get hold of is called freeware. That's totally free for you to use it and have the license to use it. However, most software, if you think about maybe Microsoft Office, for example, or the Apple iOS software, Windows 7, all of these types of software are proprietary software and you have to pay for a license to use them. Another big part of it is that you cannot see the source code. And what this means is the source code is the programming that made the software. That's the part which humans created. And this tells the computer what to do. It then gets compiled up in something called a binary or an executable file, and that's all machine code. Humans can't really read that. So you're not allowed to see in proprietary software the original code that made it, the original algorithms, the original ideas, the comments that made that software. And in addition to that, you cannot modify the software. So the license will normally say that you don't have, even if you could do it and you had the source code, you're not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to modify the software. And so what that means is that, let's say there was a bug in the software, there was an error of some kind, then you couldn't go in and find it and then fix it. Equally, if you wanted to extend the functionality of the software, you wouldn't be able to do that either because you can't go in and change it. This first one is sort of half good, half bad, so sometimes it's free, sometimes you pay for it. And so what we're looking at with proprietary software is software you have to pay for, you can't see the source code, and you cannot modify it. The bonus for the company in making proprietary software is that they keep their copyright and therefore their intellectual property or IP. So all of their ideas which they've put into that software and which they've spent thousands, tens of thousands or even millions of pounds in developing that software, they keep that safe because no one else can see how they did it. The other type of software which we have, or software model should I say, is called open source software. And this is almost the exact opposite of proprietary software. So the license for open source software is free. And the license to distribute is free, so you can share the software. In addition to this, you can, and the clue is in the title, it's open source. The source code is open, so you can see the source code. And that's really important because let's say there's a bug or you want to see how something works, you can go in and have a look at how the developer or developers did it. And you're also able to modify the source code. Now there is a negative to all of this, and in fact it's sometimes seen as a positive, so you can see it as a positive or a negative, which is that part of the license of open source software is that you must share your changes. So if you go in and fix a bug, part of the license says you must upload to the web or upload to the creators of that software those changes which you produced. If you add an extra feature to the software, then again you must upload those extra features. And so this, some people will see as a negative, but because it gives us collaborative ability to produce software, and because everyone who uses it and everyone who updates it is uploading that software and then sharing it and making that software better for everyone, a lot of people will see this as a positive. And the final point on open source software is that you will normally have to pay for support. So because the software is free, there's no money to pay for support, so therefore you need to employ another company or get another company to provide you with the support and pay for it. Sometimes you could look at this as a positive because it means you can go to any company to support you. So if you're not happy with the support you're getting, you're able to change that. And it's seen as more of a positive on proprietary software. Support is normally free. And support is normally quite good because if they don't offer support, no one's going to want to buy their product. However, this can sometimes be seen as a bit of a negative because if you're not happy with the support, they're often the only company that can support you because they're the only company that can see the source code, can fix the problems, and really know what's going on. So there we go, two completely opposite models of how software is produced and sold, the proprietary system and the open source system. And if we just look at some examples of open source and proprietary software, then the examples would be for proprietary software. You've got things like Windows 7 made by Microsoft. You've got Microsoft Office, which would be a proprietary piece of software. Adobe Photoshop, so you need to pay for it, you can't see the source code, it's proprietary software. And even some other examples where you don't necessarily have to pay directly for them, Apple's macOS and Apple's iOS, which is used in iPhones and tablets. Those bits of software are still proprietary. You can't see the source code, you can't edit it, you can't share the software with other people. However, it comes bundled for free as part of buying their product. So if you buy a Mac computer, if you buy a tablet or an iPhone, then it's coming bundled for free as part of that, but it's still proprietary software. And on the other side of software, so where we have open source, you could get the Linux operating system, and some variations of that might be Ubuntu or Debian. So these are free, you can share them. An alternative to Microsoft Office, so the open source alternative to that would be openoffice.org. However, there are other alternatives. I believe there's one called LibreOffice now. Adobe Photoshop, there's one called GIMP, the graphic image manipulator. And again here we've got two operating systems, and so the alternative operating system, which again is open source, and this one is supported by Google. So even though Google's a commercial organization, the Android operating system is open source, so anyone's able to go in, they're allowed to modify it, and they're allowed to make changes, and they need to upload those. But the actual operating system itself is free. You can go in and have a look, and you can share it with other people.